In the small and lively town of Kidala, people loved beauty and fashion. Every weekend, women filled the market, buying beads, perfumes, and colorful headscarves. The air was always filled with music, laughter, and gossip. One morning, something new caught everyone's attention. A dark building had appeared at the edge of the market, tall, shiny, and painted completely black. Above the door, a gold sign sparkled under the sun. It said, "Beauty Beyond Reflection." No one knew who built it. The shop looked strange because, unlike other bright shops, this one had no windows and no decorations. Still, people were curious. Rumors spread quickly through the market. Some said it belonged to a famous hairdresser from the city. Others said it was owned by a woman who could make anyone beautiful forever. The next day, the doors opened and a tall woman stepped out. She was dressed in a long purple dress that touched the ground. Her name was Madame Sephew. She smiled, but her smile did not reach her eyes. There was something cold about her face, beautiful but distant, like a painted mask. When she spoke, her voice was soft but powerful. "Welcome to my salon," she said. "Here beauty lasts forever. I can make you shine like the moon." The women of Kidala were amazed. Some clapped, some whispered to each other, and a few laughed nervously. Madame Sephew invited the first few women to enter. When they came out an hour later, they looked stunning. Their hair was shining, their skin glowing, and they walked with pride. Everyone in the market gasped. "How did she do that?" one woman asked. "It's magic," another whispered. Soon, Madame Sephew's salon became the talk of the town. Every day, more women came, eager to look as beautiful as those who had already been there. But there was one strange thing: no one ever saw a mirror inside. In every normal salon in Kidala, mirrors covered the walls. Women loved to watch themselves while their hair was being braided. But in Madame Sephew's salon, the walls were smooth and dark, made of polished wood. When anyone asked about it, Madame Sephew smiled and said, "Reflections are lies. True beauty is felt, not seen." Most people accepted her words, but not everyone. Among them was Nia, a young woman who worked as a hair braider in the market. She was kind and cheerful, known for her skillful hands. Her small wooden stall stood near the well, where she braided hair for children and travelers. She didn't have fancy tools or creams, but people loved her because she always treated them kindly. When the new salon opened, Nia lost many of her customers. They all ran to Madame Sephew's place. Still, she didn't feel jealous, only curious. She wanted to know why there were no mirrors. One evening, Nia passed by the salon on her way home. The sun was setting and the streets were empty. The salon door was closed, but she could hear soft music playing inside. She peeked through a small crack near the door. What she saw made her heart beat faster. The inside of the salon glowed with a strange golden light. The walls were shining and Madame Sephew was standing near a big wooden chair. A woman sat there, eyes closed, while Madame Sephew brushed her hair. But what caught Nia's eye was something else: a bowl placed on the floor near Madame Sephew's feet. Inside the bowl was a thick, silver liquid that moved like water. As Madame Sephew brushed, the woman's face slowly appeared in the liquid, smiling faintly. Nia gasped quietly and stepped back, but the wooden floor creaked. Madame Sephew turned her head slightly, her eyes glowing in the dim light. Nia quickly hid behind a barrel until Madame Sephew looked away. When she finally ran home, her mind was full of questions. What is that bowl? Why does she say reflections are lies? Why do women look different when they come out? She thought. The next day in the market, Nia noticed something even stranger. The women who had visited Madame Sephew's salon were not behaving normally. They looked beautiful, but they didn't smile or laugh much anymore. They moved slowly, spoke softly, and their eyes seemed lost, like they were thinking of something far away. When Nia greeted one of them, a woman named Asha, she only nodded and walked away without a word. It was as if her spirit had faded. That night, Nia couldn't sleep. She kept remembering Madame Sephew's cold eyes and the silver bowl that moved like water. Something inside her whispered that the salon was not just about beauty, it was something darker. The following morning she went to her grandmother, Mama Coney, who was known for her wisdom. Nia told her everything she had seen. Mama Coney listened quietly, her old eyes full of concern. "My child," she said slowly, "in old times there were people who believed a reflection holds a part of your spirit. Maybe this woman steals beauty by stealing what belongs to the spirit." Nia shivered. "What should I do, Mama?" Mama Coney sighed. "Be careful, my daughter. Curiosity can be dangerous. But truth must be found. If she hides from mirrors, maybe mirrors can reveal her secret." Nia nodded. Though she was afraid, her heart was strong. She decided she would find out the truth no matter what. The next evening she walked past the salon again, pretending to be just another customer. The door stood half open and the golden light inside flickered softly. Madame Sephew was there, arranging bottles on a shelf. She looked up and smiled faintly. "Welcome, Nia," she said as if she had been waiting for her. Nia froze. "How do you know my name?" she asked. Madame Sephew's smile grew wider. "Oh, I know all the women in this town," she said gently. "You braid hair, don't you? Come in. Let me make you even more beautiful." Nia stepped inside slowly. The air smelled sweet, but something about it made her dizzy. She looked around and saw the same dark, polished walls, no mirrors anywhere. Madame Sephew motioned for her to sit down. As she did, Nia's eyes wandered to the back corner of the room. There she saw the same silver bowl she had seen before. It shimmered softly, almost alive. Madame Sephew brushed Nia's hair with slow, careful strokes. "Tell me," she said, "why are you so curious about my salon?" Nia's heart pounded. She wanted to speak, but her voice trembled. "Because it's different. And I want to understand why." Madame Sephew chuckled softly. "Some questions," she said, "are better left unanswered." At that moment, the golden light around the bowl flickered again, and Nia caught a glimpse of her own reflection inside it, faint, distorted, and moving on its own. She gasped, realizing that this was no ordinary salon. She stood up suddenly, her chair falling backward. "What are you doing to these women?" she shouted. Madame Sephew's eyes darkened. "You ask too much, child," she said coldly. "Curiosity can take your reflection away." Nia ran out of the salon, her heart racing. The door slammed shut behind her with a loud bang. As she ran through the dark streets, she knew one thing for sure. Madame Sephew was hiding something evil. And she, Nia of Kidala, would be the one to uncover it. The next morning, Nia woke up early and sat outside her small hut, thinking about Madame Sephew's salon. The memory of the glowing bowl haunted her. The silver liquid, the floating faces, it all felt too real to be a dream. She wanted to tell someone, but who would believe her? Everyone in Kidala thought Madame Sephew was a miracle worker. When Nia reached the market that day, she saw a long line of women outside the black salon. Some were mothers, others young girls. Everyone wanted to look beautiful, even if it meant waiting for hours. Nia stood at her little braiding stand pretending to work, but her eyes kept turning toward the salon. When the first few women came out, they looked perfect. Their hair glowed, their skin looked soft, and even their clothes seemed brighter. But there was something strange about them. Their faces were calm, almost too calm. They smiled faintly but didn't laugh. Their eyes looked like they were staring at something far away that no one else could see. Nia tried to speak to one of them, a woman named Lena, who used to come to her for hair braiding. "Lena, you look beautiful," Nia said kindly. Lena turned her head slowly, her smile fixed but lifeless. "Madame Sephew says beauty is peace," she said in a quiet, flat voice. "You should visit her, Nia. You'll see." Then she walked away without another word. A chill ran down Nia's back. She had known Lena all her life and she had never heard her sound like that. Something was wrong. That night, Nia couldn't stop thinking about it. She sat near the window of her hut, staring at the moonlight on the ground. "Why do they all look the same?" she whispered to herself. "What does Madame Sephew do inside that salon?" Finally, she decided she had to go inside even if it meant pretending to be a customer. The next morning, she tied her hair neatly and wore her best blue wrapper. She walked to the salon, trying to hide her nervousness. Madame Sephew was standing at the door as if she had been waiting for her. "Ah, Nia," Madame Sephew said with a slow smile. "You have finally come. I knew you would." Nia forced a small laugh. "Yes, madam. Everyone says you make them shine. I wanted to see for myself." "Come in," Madame Sephew said softly. "Today you will see what true beauty feels like." Inside, the salon was even more strange than Nia had imagined. The air smelled of sweet flowers and smoke. The walls were smooth and dark, shining like water under candlelight. There were no mirrors, only wide panels of polished wood. When Nia looked at them, she could almost see her shadow moving, but not quite her reflection. Madame Sephew led her to a big chair in the center of the room. "Sit, child," she said, her eyes watching closely. "Relax. Let me work." Nia sat, pretending to be calm. She felt Madame Sephew's long fingers touch her hair. They were warm, almost too warm. The woman hummed a strange tune, one Nia didn't recognize. "What's that song?" Nia asked softly. "It is an old song," Madame Sephew replied. "A song of beauty. A song that helps me find your inner light." As she brushed Nia's hair, Nia noticed something odd. The sound of the brush was soft, but each stroke made her feel lighter, almost dizzy. She tried to look around but her eyes felt heavy. For a moment she thought she saw a soft glow coming from under the floorboards. "Madam," she said quickly, "where are your mirrors? Don't your customers want to see how they look?" Madame Sephew smiled, her voice low. "Reflections lie. True beauty is inside, not in glass. Mirrors only feed vanity. Here, I free women from that prison." Nia nodded slowly, but inside, her heart raced. She now understood why the others seemed empty. Maybe Madame Sephew had taken something from them. Before Madame could continue, Nia pretended to sneeze and said, "Oh, I must fetch my handkerchief. I left it outside." Madame Sephew gave her a long look, then smiled again. "Go ahead. But hurry back. You do not want to lose your chance to shine." Nia stepped outside, but instead of leaving, she quietly moved around the back of the salon. There was a small window covered by thin wooden bars. She crouched down and peered through. The room inside looked different from the one in front. Shelves lined the walls, filled with bottles of oil, beads, and cloth. In the middle of the room was a large bowl, the same silver one she had seen before. The liquid inside glowed softly like moonlight. Madame Sephew walked toward it, holding a small golden comb. She whispered words in a language Nia didn't understand. Then Nia's breath caught in her throat. The liquid began to move and faces slowly appeared in it, the faces of women from the village. Their eyes were open, their lips moving as if whispering secrets. The sound was faint, like wind through dry leaves. Madame Sephew leaned closer to the bowl and whispered, "Rest now, my beauties. Your glow gives me strength." Her voice was soft but cold. Nia's hands trembled as she watched. She finally understood. Madame Sephew was stealing a part of these women's spirits, their reflections, to make them beautiful for a time while keeping their true selves trapped in the bowl. That was why they looked empty. Suddenly the wooden bar under Nia's hand creaked. Madame Sephew stopped chanting. Her head turned sharply toward the window. Nia ducked down and held her breath, her heart beating fast. For a long moment, all she could hear was silence. Then Madame Sephew spoke, her voice smooth and chilling. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing, my dear," she said. "You may not like what you find." Nia froze, afraid to move. But Madame Sephew didn't come outside. After a few moments, Nia slowly backed away and ran as quietly as she could. When she reached home, she locked her door and sat on the floor, shaking. She could still see those floating faces in her mind. She remembered their sad eyes, their mouths whispering for help. "What is she?" Nia whispered to herself. "How can she take their reflections? Their souls?" All night she couldn't sleep. She lit a candle and stared at the small mirror she kept near her bed. When she looked into it, she saw her own tired face, but it was still her, still real. She touched her cheek and whispered, "She won't take mine." The next day the market was full of talk. Madame Sephew had started offering a special permanent glow that would make women's beauty last forever. Everyone was excited. But Nia felt only fear. She knew that whatever Madame Sephew was doing, it wasn't magic, it was something dark, something wrong. She went to see Mama Tano, the old herbalist who sold healing roots at the edge of town. Nia told her everything, about the bowl, the glowing faces, and Madame Sephew's strange words. Mama Tano frowned deeply. "Ah, child," she said, "I have heard of such a thing. Long ago there were women who practiced spirit beauty, they took the light from others to stay young. They feared mirrors because mirrors show the truth." "So what can I do?" Nia asked. The morning sky over Kidala was pale and quiet, but Nia's heart was beating fast. She had not slept the whole night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces in Madame Sephew's shining bowl, faces of women she knew, trapped and whispering softly. She could not let it continue. She needed proof, something that could make the others believe her. So before the sun rose fully, Nia wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and walked quickly through the empty streets. The market was still closed, the air cool and silent. When she reached the black salon, the golden sign above the door looked dull in the morning light. She stood there for a moment, her hands trembling. She whispered to herself, "You can do this, Nia. You must be brave." The door was locked, but Nia found a small side window she had noticed before. It was partly open to let the air in. She pushed it gently and it made a faint creak. Holding her breath, she climbed inside. The salon looked different without its golden lamps. In the dim morning light, it felt cold and empty. The walls that once seemed to shine now looked like dull wood, and the sweet scent of flowers was gone. Nia could hear only the faint drip of water from somewhere deep inside. She moved carefully, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. The front room looked normal, bottles of oil lined neatly on the shelves, chairs placed perfectly and combs resting in their boxes. But behind a heavy brown curtain at the back, she could feel a strange heat, like the air was alive. Her heart pounded as she lifted the curtain and stepped inside. The small room behind it was nothing like the salon in front. The walls were covered in strange symbols painted in gold. Shelves filled with jars covered every corner. Each jar glowed softly with a white or golden light, and on every jar, a name was written in neat black letters, names that made Nia gasp. She moved closer, reading them one by one. Lena, Asha, Miriam, Zola. Each name belonged to someone she knew, women from her village, women who had gone into the salon and come out beautiful but empty. Their spirits, their reflections were in those jars. Nia felt a shiver run through her whole body. She picked up one jar and the light inside flickered like a living thing. It was warm in her hands. She thought she heard a faint whisper, a woman's voice saying her name. Nia, help us. She almost dropped the jar in shock. Her knees felt weak. She placed it back carefully and stepped backward. Her eyes darted around the room until they landed on a small wooden table in the corner. On it lay a thick, dusty book with a cover made of dark leather. The book looked old, its corners worn and its pages yellow. Nia brushed the dust away and opened it. Inside were strange drawings, faces without eyes, women standing in circles of light, bowls filled with silver water. She flipped through the pages until she found writing she could understand. The words made her blood run cold. The secret of eternal youth lies in the reflection of others. A reflection holds the spirit, and the spirit holds beauty. Take it and time will not touch you. Nia gasped softly as she read on. Madame Sefu's handwriting filled the pages, describing how to prepare the bowl, how to whisper the right words, how to trap the spirit of another through their reflection. One line stood out. The mirror must never face me, for truth burns those who steal it. Now everything made sense. Madame Sefu had no mirrors because they could reveal who she truly was, old, cursed, and empty without the stolen light of others. Nia felt sick. She wanted to run, to scream, to tell the whole town what she had found. But as she turned toward the curtain, a cold wind swept through the room. The candle near the table flickered and went out. Then from the darkness, a voice spoke softly. Curiosity, it said, is the first step toward losing yourself. Nia froze. Her heart stopped for a moment. When she turned around, Madame Sefu was standing there, her purple dress brushing the floor, her face calm but her eyes glowing faintly like embers. Madame, Nia whispered, stepping back. I was just. Madame Sefu raised a finger. You were just where you should not be, she said coldly. Do you think I did not feel you enter my home? This place listens to every breath that dares to question it. Nia's mind raced. She looked toward the curtain, wondering if she could run, but Madame Sefu moved faster than she expected. In seconds she stood between Nia and the door. You saw my jars, Madame Sefu said softly. You saw my book. Now tell me, Nia, what did you learn? Nia swallowed hard, forcing herself to speak. You're stealing from them. Their reflections, their spirits, you're keeping them here. Madame Sefu's lips curved into a slow smile. Stealing? She whispered. No, child. I am preserving. They come to me full of sadness and insecurity. They want to feel beautiful. I take away what weighs them down, their reflection, their pain. And in return, I give them peace. Peace? Nia said angrily. You take their life. Their eyes are empty because of you. Madame Sefu tilted her head, amused. Empty? No, my dear. Free. You mistake silence for loss. You do not yet understand the gift I give. Nia felt anger rise inside her. You're lying. You're using them. You're using all of us to stay young. Madame Sefu laughed softly, a sound that made the air colder. And what if I am? Would you not do the same if time had stolen your beauty, your power, your place in this world? They call me evil, but I am only surviving. As she spoke, the light from the jars grew brighter, casting long shadows across the room. Nia could see the truth now. Madame Sefu's face began to change. Her smooth skin rippled like water, revealing deep lines beneath. Her beautiful hair turned dull, her lips cracked, her eyes hollow. Stop! Nia cried, holding the book in front of her like a shield. You can't hide behind lies anymore. Madame Sefu hissed, stepping closer. You think you can stop me, little girl? Your curiosity will cost you dearly. You should have stayed outside, braiding your simple hair. Her voice grew darker, like many voices speaking at once. The jars around them shook as the glowing lights inside flickered wildly. Nia stumbled back, clutching the book to her chest. Give that to me, Madame Sefu demanded. No. Nia shouted. This ends now. She turned and ran for the curtain, but the floor seemed to pull at her feet. The air grew heavy and the light turned red. Madame Sefu's voice echoed behind her, calm and terrifying. You can run, Nia, but remember, curiosity opens doors that can never be closed. Nia pushed through the curtain and stumbled into the front room, gasping for air. She didn't look back. She ran straight to the window she had entered through and climbed out, scraping her knee as she fell to the ground outside. When she turned back to look, the salon stood silent, the windows dark. But she knew Madame Sefu was still inside, watching, waiting. Clutching the dusty book to her chest, Nia whispered, I will find a way to stop you. The wind blew softly across the market as dawn fully broke, carrying with it the faint whisper of trapped voices, weak but not gone. And Nia knew their hope now rested in her hands. Nia's hands trembled as she ran through the dark streets of Kidala. The moon hung low, lighting her path with a soft silver glow. She could still feel Madame Sefu's cold eyes on her back, as if the woman's shadow followed her even in the night. Her heart pounded fast, but she did not stop until she reached the small hut of Mama Tano, the village healer. Mama Tano was sitting by her fire, grinding herbs when Nia burst in, breathless and frightened. The old woman looked up, her wrinkled face calm and wise. Child, she said softly, what hunts your spirit tonight? Nia knelt beside her and whispered everything, the salon with no mirrors, the glowing jars, and the dark secret of Madame Sefu. Mama Tano listened without a word, her old eyes growing sad. When Nia finished, silence filled the hut. Only the crackling fire spoke. Then Mama Tano rose slowly and went to a wooden chest. She opened it and took out a small round mirror framed with pale stone that seemed to shine like moonlight. This is no ordinary mirror, she said. It was made long ago to fight lies and darkness. Truth shines brighter than any spell. Take it, child, and face her. But remember, the mirror shows not just faces but hearts. Nia took the mirror with shaking hands. It was warm to the touch, almost alive. She thanked Mama Tano and hurried back toward the market. The night air felt heavier now, as if the town itself held its breath. When she reached the salon, everything was still. The building looked darker than ever, the sign beauty beyond reflection, swaying in the wind. Nia pushed open the door. Inside, candles flickered along the walls. The air smelled of strange oils and burning herbs. Madame Sefu stood at the center of the room, wearing a long black dress that shimmered like water. She was stirring her shining bowl again, humming a tune that made the hairs on Nia's neck rise. The oil in the bowl glowed brighter and brighter, and faint faces began to appear, faces of the women from the village. Their mouths moved silently, calling for help. Nia stepped forward. Stop, she shouted. Madame Sefu turned slowly. Her eyes glowed red in the candlelight. Ah, she said softly, the little braider returns. Did you come to trade your reflection too? Nia held the moonstone mirror close to her chest. You've stolen their spirits. You've lied to everyone. You will stop tonight. Madame Sefu laughed, the sound echoing like 100 voices at once. You cannot fight beauty, child. They came to me because they were weak, because they wanted to be more than they were. They only wanted to feel good, Nia said firmly. You took advantage of their pain. Madame Sefu raised her hands and the candles flared higher. The walls seemed to move and shadows curled toward Nia. Then give me your light, Sefu hissed, and I will leave them free. But Nia stood still. Her heart raced, but she remembered Mama Tano's words, truth shines brighter than any spell. Slowly she lifted the moonstone mirror. The moment the mirror faced Madame Sefu, a sharp white light burst through the room. The shadows screamed and twisted. Madame Sefu stepped back, covering her face. No, she shouted. Put it down. But Nia held firm. The mirror's glow grew stronger until the whole salon was filled with blinding light. The jars on the shelves began to shake, then crack open. One by one, bright reflections flew out, the missing spirits of the women. They circled the room like silver birds, whispering and laughing softly. Madame Sefu fell to her knees. Her beautiful face began to fade, wrinkles spreading across her skin. Her hair turned gray, her body trembling. I only wanted to stay beautiful, she cried. I gave them what they wanted. Their beauty was never yours to take, Nia said. The mirror's light wrapped around Madame Sefu like fire. Her body turned to dust that shimmered for a moment before vanishing completely. The salon shook and then, silence. Nia lowered the mirror. The glow faded. Around her, the room looked normal again. The candles went out and the jars were gone. The air felt lighter. The reflections that had been trapped floated toward the door, glowing softly as they returned to their owners. Outside, dawn was breaking. The first rays of sunlight touched Nia's face. She stepped out of the salon, tired but calm. The dark building behind her began to crumble slowly into dust, carried away by the wind. Mama Tano stood nearby, watching with a proud smile. "You have done well, child," she said. "The light inside you is stronger than fear." Nia handed the mirror back to her. "It was not me," she said quietly. "It was truth." Mama Tano chuckled softly. "And truth needs a brave heart to hold it." The two women walked away as the sun rose higher, painting the sky gold. The town would soon wake and see that the evil salon was gone. But Nia knew the real battle had not been about mirrors or beauty, it had been about hearts. She looked down at her hands, stained with moonlight, and smiled. The people of Kidala would be free again, and Madame Sefu's name would fade like dust in the wind. And from that day on, no one in Kidala ever trusted beauty that feared its own reflection. By the time the morning sun rose over Kidala, the strange salon had vanished completely. Where it once stood, there was now only open land covered in soft ashes that sparkled faintly like silver dust. The people of the town gathered in wonder, whispering to each other. Some said a storm had taken it, others said the spirits had claimed it back. But when they saw Nia standing quietly near the empty space, they knew the truth: something powerful had ended there. The women who had once gone to Madame Sefu's salon began to remember what had happened. They touched their faces and hair, feeling both familiar and strange. Their beauty had not faded, but their hearts felt lighter, as if a heavy shadow had finally lifted. One of them, Asha, walked up to Nia and said softly, "I remember her eyes, and the darkness. You saved us." Nia shook her head. "No," she said gently. "I only showed what was hidden. The truth saved you." The townspeople gathered around her. Old men, market sellers, and children all came to listen as she told them about Madame Sefu's mirrors and the stolen reflections. The people gasped and held their hands over their mouths. Some cried. They could not believe they had been fooled by promises of beauty. Mama Tano, the old healer, stood beside Nia and nodded proudly. "Evil hides in pride," she said. "But it fears the light of truth." For many days the town talked about what had happened. They cleaned the empty space and planted a small tree there. They called it the Tree of Reflection. Every year they promised to gather beneath it and remind their children that beauty without kindness is hollow. Nia's life changed after that. She decided not to leave Kidala, though many people asked her to travel and tell her story in other towns. She wanted to help her own people first. So she opened a small salon near the same market where Madame Sefu's had once been. But her salon looked nothing like the dark one before it. The walls were painted in warm colors, yellow and cream, and the scent of flowers filled the air. A single mirror hung on the front wall, round and simple. Beneath it, Nia placed a small wooden sign that said, "True beauty lives in kindness, not in reflection." Everyone who came to her salon saw the sign first. Nia greeted them with a smile and kind words. She never promised to make anyone perfect. She only helped them feel comfortable and confident. One afternoon, a young girl named Lani came in looking shy and sad. "My friends say my hair is too thick and ugly," she whispered. Nia smiled warmly and began brushing Lani's hair gently. "Your hair is strong," she said. "It grows toward the sun. That means it is proud, just like you should be." The girl's eyes lit up, and when she looked in the mirror, she smiled for the first time. Nia felt her heart swell with quiet joy. That was the beauty she wanted to share, the kind that started inside. Over time, Nia's salon became a peaceful place where people came not only to look better but to feel better. Sometimes she told them the story of Madame Sefu, not to scare them but to remind them of what they had learned. "The mirror shows your face," Nia would say, "but your heart is the real reflection." One evening as the sun set, Mama Tano came to visit. She looked around the bright, cheerful salon and smiled. "You have turned a dark place into a home of light," she said. Nia poured her some tea and replied, "I only wanted to give people what Madame Sefu took away, peace." Mama Tano nodded. "You did more than that, child. You taught them that beauty is not a spell. It is a choice." The people of Kidala carried Nia's lesson into their lives. The women helped one another instead of competing. They shared beauty secrets, laughter, and stories. Men respected them more, seeing how strong and wise they had become. Even the children played near the Tree of Reflection, pretending to be brave heroes who fought away shadows. Years passed, and the story of the mysterious salon became part of the town's history. Some said it was only a legend, but the older villagers always shook their heads. It was real, they would whisper. And it taught us to love what we see in the mirror. Nia grew older, but her smile never faded. Her salon stayed open, and her simple mirror still hung on the same wall. Travelers who passed through Kidala always stopped to visit, curious about the story they had heard along the road. They would ask, "Is this the place where the woman fought the shadow of beauty?" Nia would laugh softly and answer, "No, my friend. The real battle was not here. It was inside the hearts of those who learned to love themselves." On quiet mornings, Nia often stood outside her salon, watching the sunrise over the market. The air smelled of roasted maize and fresh bread. She would see women walking proudly with their hair uncovered, their heads held high. She would see men greeting them with respect. The world felt different now, softer, kinder. Sometimes she still thought about Madame Sefiu. She wondered if the woman had once been kind before darkness took her heart. Maybe she had been lonely or afraid of growing old. Nia prayed that wherever her spirit had gone, she had found peace. As the wind blew gently through the town, Nia touched the mirror's frame and smiled. She whispered the words she had written long ago, "True beauty lives in kindness, not in reflection." And every person who looked into that mirror saw more than just their face. They saw the light that lived inside them, the light that no spell, shadow, or time could ever take away. The people of Kidala never forgot Nia's courage. Her story was told to every child, passed from one generation to the next. It became a tale not of fear but of hope, a reminder that true beauty cannot be stolen, hidden, or bought. It must be grown with love. The empty land where the dark salon once stood grew bright with flowers. At night, under the moonlight, the petals shimmered softly, as if they remembered the magic of the mirror that saved them all. And so, the people of Kidala lived with open hearts, never again chasing the beauty that hides from mirrors, for they had learned that the greatest reflection is the one that shines from within.